Hi, Dr. Tamara Harble here, and I'm going to teach you how to be a reading pro because academic reading is different than just reading leisurely. So let's get started. First, the pro. What is it? PRO are the basic three steps that you need to help you with academic reading. One is first to prepare to read. You don't just jump right into it, you have to prepare first. Then you want to read actively. We'll talk about what active reading is, and then reflect upon what you've written. After that, then you can organize what you've read so that you can remember it better. So when you prepare, there's four P's that you can do. First is figure out your purpose of reading. What are your goals? And I don't mean, oh, it's because it's required. Okay, but why is it required? What are you reading it for? Is it so that you can write an essay about it? Is it so you can analyze it? Are you trying to use it as a summary for something? So, what is the goal for your reading? Then preview what you're about to read. If it's an academic text, previewing is pretty important because it helps you understand what it is you're going to learn or what that chapter is expecting out of you. This can be found in like the objectives or the questions if they come with chapter questions. This helps you know what that chapter's really trying to get across to you so that you can limit having to memorize every single word on every single page, right? Preview what you're about to read by looking over the key points. What are the section headers? Well, what's the title, too? If there are section headers, what's bolded, italicized? These things are important for a reason. If they have like a text box, sometimes you'll see a big text box with something in it that's already written somewhere else, and that means they really want to focus on that. So pay attention to those and like tables or statistical evidence or stuff like that that's a visual. Those can help you understand what you're reading. Figure out what your previous knowledge is. Your previous knowledge comes into play because our brains, they don't just start working. You have to stop and think about the topic and what it is you know. For example, in my reading classes, I used to have them read an excerpt from Malcolm X from his book called Saved. And so before we even get started, I asked them what they already know about him. And so a couple of students will say, well, he had been in prison and that he was an activist and he was like around the 60s and stuff. And so this gets us prepared. Okay, around the 60s, what was going on? What do we already know? This gives our brains time to open up those file cabinets up in our head, figure what it is that we already know so that we're prepared to add to those files. So, what have you already read or heard about it? Then predict what you're going to learn from the reading. What new information are you going to glean? What are they wanting you to learn? Prediction helps you keep focus on what it is that you need to know. Then read it actively and reflect. Active reading means that you're not just picking it up and reading it. Always have something in your hand to write with, whether it's a highlighter or a pen or a pencil, whether it's the book itself or just your notes that you're taking. Active reading means that you're not just reading, that you're staying focused. You are stopping, reviewing what it is that you've just read or reflecting on it, and then taking notes. If you are passively reading, you'll start reading, and I do this, and then you'll realize, wait a minute, my brain's off at the grocery store shopping for dinner tonight. Where did I last remember where I left off? So check yourself. And if you realize that your brain's not focusing, go back to what you remember and start reading again. That's why with academic reading, it's best to stop after each section and take notes of that section, even if it's just the gist of what that section's about. And that way, that stopping and working and then getting back to it keeps your eyes from just getting tired, right? So don't just read one, first to the end. Stop and reflect on it. Synthesize or combine what you've learned in meaningful ways. Synthesis is like this information and this information kind of stuck together. So synthesize that information. What are they saying that reflects with something else you might be reading? Or if your teacher had a lecture and the reading has something to do with it, how are those related? These types of connections will really help. And then organize. Organizing the sure way will help you retain more. One is select the facts, the concepts, the main points, those identifying points that those chapters or the author is trying to get a point across. Support their supporting points that they're using, the purpose. Why are they writing what they wrote? So, what is the main thing of each section that they're trying to get across? And then using the material to summarize, paraphrase, underline, or outline. What are these? Well, summarizing is taking what they wrote and condensing it into a smaller piece. How big? It depends on the size of what you're reading. For example, if I went to see a new movie, like I just went to see the movie Heretic, and somebody asked me what it was, I'm not going to talk for 2 hours and repeat everything that the movie was about. I'm going to give them maybe about 5 minutes of the gist of the movie without trying to give away the good stuff, right? So you want to do that. You want to just take it all and condense it down to the most important points that need to be known. Use the material in paraphrasing. This is really a handy tool if you're reading something difficult. If you take that and go, okay, wait a minute, what exactly does this mean? And tear it apart and then write it in your own words. It helps you understand it better. There are some very, very elaborate scientific investigations out there that I've read that are just, whoa, way over my head. So I have to stop and concentrate on each section to get what it is they're trying to say. And then I put it in my own words and I can remember it better. Underlining and outlining. Underlining can also be highlighting. When I first started college, I was highlighting everything because it was important. I was overwhelming myself. Highlighting the main points, things that you know you have to remember so that you can go back and find it is usually a good thing. If you have an article that you're going to use, say, for writing something, it helps to print it off and highlight the pieces that are relevant to what it is that you're going to be using in your paper. So that way you won't have to keep flipping through that article and go, where was that? Or where it said something that I can, use as a quote. So highlight as you go along, right? And then outlining, that would be taking all that information and just jotting down like the points of each paragraph so that it kind of condenses it down for you. Recite the information by self-testing and ask yourself questions. This can help if you say it out loud. I know the word recite sounds weird, but say it out loud helps you retain it more. If I just read silently, I'm only using my eyes. But if I read aloud, I'm using my eyes, I'm using my voice, I'm using my ears. I retain more information because my brain is more active, more invested. So reciting really helps. Then examine what you've retained by reviewing or looking back on what you've learned. You can do it immediately after you've read or wait till the next day, a couple of days later. The more you do it, the more you're going to retain. So if it's something you know you're going to be tested on specifically, go back to those notes again and again. Another way you can examine is by going to the chapter questions at the end and seeing if you can answer them to help you understand better.